Hey, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society Podcast, reminding you that this podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the other great podcasts on the network at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the slayer of non-threats, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. Before we get started, let me tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing you know about Glock pistols is that they are reliable. Out of the box, to the range, absolutely reliable. It's what makes them so popular with competitors, law enforcement, military, and responsible armed citizens. But one of the drawbacks is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the folks at Glock Triggers asked themselves, how do we make them better while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they've refined the interaction of the metal parts to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced overtravel without sacrificing safety or reliability. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn, Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Visit them today at GlockTriggers.com and check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, and the Hackathorn trigger systems. Use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off of your entire order. GlockTriggers.com, the highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. Our special guest today joining us by phone is Bill Ragan from Flagstaff, Arizona. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lloyd. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing for a living there in Flagstaff.
Well, I've been in Flagstaff about 20 years. I currently am working for the government, your tax dollars at work. I'm a network administrator, IT geek. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. So, yeah.
Very cool. Are you a native of Arizona?
No, sir. Actually, I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but I grew up in Denver. That's where my wife and I met and got married. So, yeah, I've been in Flagstaff about 20 years. So.
Okay. So where did the, growing up in Florida, where did the interest in guns get started? Was that something that you were introduced to as a kid, or was it something that
As a kid. Yeah, I was a young kid. My dad shot a little bit, not a whole lot, though. Again, we were, this was in Miami, so there wasn't a whole lot of exposure there, but we would visit my grandparents up in Georgia, and my uncles would take me out and get me shooting, and I just loved anything with a trigger. I just enjoyed it. So that's how I originally got into it, but that's been a long time ago. So, I can't add that much. Anyway,
how were you introduced to competitive shooting?
I started competitive archery a long time ago, probably 30 years ago. But competitive shooting, I probably started when I got to Flagstaff. We started going to church, and I met some folks that were doing a kind of an outlaw match with some steel, and I started shooting with them, and that's when I really got into shooting handguns a lot. And that's just that became something it's almost a sickness. I can't get enough of having a handgun in my hand. It's just, I literally cannot walk by the safe without picking it out and doing some dry fire or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's probably a good thing I don't have a safe in my office, or I wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I got started there, and then I guess back in 2010, my buddy was telling me that he had gone to an IDPA state match down in Tucson, and was telling me about it. And he said, yeah, we ought to do that sometime. I mean, we kind of dropped it at that point. So I started digging around a little bit and found a local club down in Prescott, Arizona. So I said, hey, let's go down here and check this out. And so we did. And like many people find out, the people down there were just unbelievably welcoming and great to be around and really helpful. And that kind of got my foot started with IDPA, and been doing it ever since. Again, I started in 2010.
So define local. How close is Prescott to Flagstaff?
So Prescott is about, well, the range is actually 2 hours from my house. So
okay.
Yeah, it's a good drive. Arizona is a big state.
Right.
But and Flagstaff is kind of its own little commune. Yeah, there's most of the gun people are south of us, Prescott and Phoenix and places like that,
right.
Tucson. But I'm trying to change that. So,
so
we've got to go ahead.
What was that first IDPA, that local match like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. It was the first time I'd ever heard of shooting with a concealment garment on. I think I was wearing a fleece vest or something like that. It seemed to work okay. And I remember, I had a pretty good collection of mismatched equipment. I think I only had one mag holder, and they let me keep the other one in my pocket for that first match. So that worked all right. I think I was shooting a Springfield XD back then, but yeah, it was just way fun. The guys would take me aside after a stage and, yeah, maybe try this and maybe try this, and they were just really, really helpful, and they were some phenomenal shooters there. You've probably heard of Jacob Hetherington. That's actually his home club in Prescott, and I've got to shoot with Jacob quite a few times. Just an amazing talent.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard of him. He shoots for the Army now, and he's just incredible to be around. But he was a kid back then. He was a master before he could drive a car, literally.
So,
but he was fun to watch grow up.
What you started out with the XD. What's the favorite division? You're a master in multiple classes now. What's the favorite division and the favorite gun currently?
Favorite division is definitely carry optics now. I'm really enjoying the not needing corrective lenses anymore, and so much easier to call shots with the dot. Yeah, so anyway, I'm shooting a SIG P320 X5. Got some nice trigger work done on it, and the standard SIG Romeo 1 works great. And yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it.
Is there a
good.
What is the transition to, for those who are younger and who have not quite gotten to where you and I are, where we're having a little harder time finding the front sight? That's
a nice way to put it.
Right. What's the transition like from shooting, iron sights to carry optics? Because I'm thinking about doing the same thing, and I'm sure there are others who are in the same boat.
So the transition pretty much is going from a sight-focused method to a target focus. You're not focusing on the front sights anymore. You don't have to focus on the alignment between the front and the rear sights. You pretty much just focus on the target itself and put the dot there where you want it to go. And the dot is in focus and the target is in focus. There's no switching your eyes focus back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It does take a lot of dry fire though. probably dry fired, thousands and thousands of times just to get that index down.
Right.
The P320 is a little easier because, like a lot of guns, though, it's the slide is machined, so the red dot actually sits lower. I think guns probably with an adapter plate on top, where the sight sits a little bit higher, it's maybe a little bit more difficult. But the red dot on the SIG is almost where the sights were.
Okay.
So it's it's not a real difficult transition. The only time I really have trouble now is when we have like weekend only stages or strings. Sometimes it's a little bit slow to find the dot with my weekend, but that's something I'm working on now.
So it's just a matter of you're not going to be able to just pick it up and immediately go burn down a stage. You've got to do some dry fire to get used to that index.
Absolutely. And I've heard from a lot of people that they get frustrated because their shooting initially, goes downhill for a little while. And that's certainly to be expected. I mean, how many thousands and thousands of rounds have you fired with iron sights?
Right.
It'd be pretty ambitious to try to pick up a red dot and, expect to have that level of accuracy right away.
Right.
So it does take some work, but after you put the work in, and I'm still doing it obviously, but after you get the index down and things like that, in my opinion, it is faster.
Mm-hmm. So after that first local match, getting back to your shooting career here, what?
Sure.
How long after that first match where you were addicted immediately? How long after that before you decided I want to try one of these sanctioned matches that I've heard about?
Oh, it was the very next year. I shot the Arizona State match in 2011, and I started doing well. In fact, I think I won the marksman class at that very first sanctioned match. So, and that kind of hooked me. But yeah,
very good. So what was
a little traveling? Go ahead.
Yeah, how much traveling do you find yourself doing now, especially with with work and family? It's always a balance. What is what's it been like, and how far do you find yourself traveling nowadays to sanction matches?
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned family. So I'm an empty nester now, so it's just my wife and I. So, and she has been incredibly supportive. So a lot of times what we'll do is I'll schedule a vacation around a match. Her family lives out in Michigan, and I've shot that match a couple of times, just kind of a combination vacation, and I'll, go across the state, shoot the match real quick, and come back the next morning. Or we do that in Colorado. In fact, I'm heading out next month to go shoot Walt's match, and Memorial Day weekend. I worked that one last year at the Colorado State match, and that was a lot of fun. So went to nationals, been to nationals twice. That's always a good experience.
Yep.
I haven't done any of the East Coast matches, and other than actually I did shoot Alabama, so that was kind of out there. But you guys, I remember listening to Aaron's podcast. Aaron Brooks, a good friend of mine, and IDPA seems like it's just so much bigger out there in the Midwest and in the East. You guys have nothing of getting 100 people at a local match, and that's just mind-boggling to me. Out here, this is a USPSA territory out here, so we sometimes struggle to get 30 or 40.
Right.
But the numbers are just amazing. But yeah, I have enjoyed the traveling of, let's see, California, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, Yes, it's been fun.
Is there one in particular that you think back on and you say that was that was really fun, or that those stages were really inventive, or you have a couple of memories from one of those traveling matches?
Inventive. When you say inventive, I got to think of the Colorado State match last year. Walt had some unbelievable stages, and a lot of people were saying that it was overly complex. But it was like an all-star match. It was like, where are the best stages from every match you've been to and put them all together in one. It was just amazing. A lot of movers, lots of different ways to do things, and I thought that was pretty inventive. The Alabama State match several years ago, the guy that runs that is a former robotics engineer, so he had a lot of stuff with pneumatics and photo sensors and things like that I'd never seen before. So that was a lot of fun. In fact, that same guy brought several of those stages to nationals last year in Talladega.
Oh, okay.
And, we had a great time. With that.
Very neat. Now you're also you're now, like you said, you're working matches. What was the interest in actually going to a match to work? Because that's a whole different experience.
It really is. I guess I shot for, probably 3 years before I became an SO. And, like I said, it's almost an addiction. So I immersed myself into IDPA when I started out. And so I tried to learn the rule book as much as possible. And I would get to the point where people would ask me questions about the rule book, and I wasn't even an SO. And I thought, well, I might as well become an SO and help out a little bit. And our area coordinator, Bill Ragan, he lives right down in Phoenix. So he and I got together and did a class, and became an SO. And so a few years ago, my buddy and I decided that we would take over the IDPA club here in Flagstaff. It's a very small club. We get 15 to 20 at a match, nothing real big. Mm-hmm. But I'm the match director. We are the match directors for that. So that's a different experience, coming up with stages too, instead of just having to work.
Well, what give a shout out to your local club?
Flagstaff Action Shooters. Yeah. We've been shooting indoors for a little while. We have an awesome local range that just opened up about a year ago, Timberline Firearms. Flagstaff had been without an indoor range for years and years and years. So these guys opened up an indoor range, and it's been great for us. We've shot indoors for a while, but we do have an outdoor range to use, and it's a lot of fun. It's sometimes challenging, but the road to get out there is, it's out in the forest, so it's the road can be a little rough sometimes, but so we're trying to increase our numbers. We're trying to do everything we can to see if we can, generate some more interest and get some more people going. I've got 4 people signed up for an SO class coming up in 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll get some more SOs and be able to increase our numbers a little bit.
Now, that's interesting. You mentioned the range being out in the forest. I think probably a lot of people picture Arizona and they think it's all desert. What's the what's the shooting climate like? Depending on where you are in Arizona, what if you come to a match? What are you likely to experience weather-wise?
Yeah, that just depends on where you're going to shoot. Like Phoenix, in fact, I'm going to be shooting in Phoenix on Sunday, and it's probably going to be real close to triple digits, if not there. But our matches here, we've shot several matches with snow on the ground up here. Flagstaff's at 7,000 feet, so we get our fair share of snow. You can pretty much find any climate you want to right here in Arizona. Prescott's kind of it's more closer to Phoenix, a little low scrub pines and deserty area, but it's not quite as hot.
Gotcha. Okay.
Phoenix can be brutal, though. It can get downright warm.
That's, I think, an understatement.
Yeah.
Let's play a little Pick Your Poison here.
Sure.
Little something I added to mix things up for those who had a couple of my guests had said that they'd listened to the show and they were prepared for all the questions. And I was like, well, maybe I need to mix the questions up a little bit.
So hit me with it.
All right, so you talked about how much you like carry optics, but if you couldn't shoot carry optics, you're a master in ESP, SSP, CDP, CCP, you're an expert in bug. What would you choose to shoot if you had to choose one, but you couldn't choose carry optics?
That's an easy one. I would shoot my 686. I very much enjoy revolvers.
Oh.
In fact, at the last Arizona State match, they didn't, for whatever reason, recognize carry optics. So I just entered with my revolver and actually ended up third. I did well. But yeah, I enjoy it. Once I shoot it for a while and learn how to count to 6 accurately, I'm okay. When that 7th one goes click, it's kind of a disheartening experience.
Right.
But yeah. But yeah, I enjoy the revolver a lot.
Okay. If you get a choice between shooting a standard stage at a major match, first stage of the match or last, which would you do?
At a major?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I would volunteer to go first. I would. I like to look at a stage beforehand. So I'm normally, when I arrive at a stage, I'm fairly prepared. And I think I would rather go first than last. It seems like last I would be maybe too apt to change my mind too many times.
Right.
Whereas if I went first, I could just, okay, here's your plan.
Yep.
Go with it.
Yep. Now, does it having it at the beginning of the match make a difference to you as opposed to the end? Some people would say, well, I like to be warmed up at the end. By the end of the match, I'm warmed up and ready for it. Others are like, well, if I get it out of the way early and then I don't have to do it later in the day, I that's my warm up. Which way do you look at it?
Probably the first. Get it out of the way. Get right into the shooting. A lot of times I'll approach it particularly the first stage of the match, and maybe not push real hard. Try real hard to get that first stage down 0.
Right.
Just to set the tone, even if I'm not blazing fast. Just to set the tone for the accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would rather go first.
Okay. Now we were talking just a moment ago about the differences in climate there in different parts of Arizona. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer it hot, or would you rather shoot in cold weather like 30 degrees, or would you rather shoot in triple digits?
No, there's very few activities I would rather do at 30 degrees, Lloyd. You're likely to meet few people in the world that have an aversion to cold weather as I do. And you're going to ask you, why do you live in Flagstaff 20 years? Yeah, I know. My retirement years will not involve a snow shovel. I've decided that.
Right.
So I've decided I'm definitely going to head someplace warm. Now, there's definitely a limit to that. I mean, I shot at Nationals last year, and it was unbelievably brutal. It was 95 plus that much humidity.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of heat is a bit much. But I don't have a problem shooting in Phoenix because it's, they say it's a dry heat, but it's true. I mean, it's definitely easier than the humidity in Alabama.
Right. Yep. Having grown up in the Southeast, I completely agree with you.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Do you prefer if you got moving targets? Would you prefer the threat target moving or the non-threat moving in front of the threat?
I would prefer the non-threat moving. That way the threat targets are in one place all the time, and you can focus your sights on it. As soon as the non-threat's out of the way, you hit the trigger.
Just post up on it.
Instead of having to consciously lead it or, post up, like you said.
Right. Okay. Would you prefer shooting moving targets or shooting on the move? Both are a difficult skill especially for new shooters to master. It's do you have a preference, one or the other, if you had to choose?
Definitely, I would rather shoot a moving target than me moving. At 60 years old and probably my best figure a few years ago. I don't move quite as nimbly as I used to. So I'm working on that. I mean, that's certainly not an excuse. I'm definitely working on it. But yeah, I mean, if I can stand in one place and shoot moving target, that's definitely a preference.
Gotcha.
You know, I seem to do real well on standard stages where there's, you know, very little movement and you're just standing there and being accurate. I do real well on those.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now this
it's
one,
fun to watch people that are good at movement, though.
yes,
Yeah.
I can definitely admire the skill.
I could do that when I was your age.
Now this may be you may have a different answer than some folks with your affinity for carry optics. If you had to choose between wide open targets at say 20 yards or lots of non-threats and everything's really close, which would you prefer?
Wide open at 20, sure. Wide open at 30, you know, that's fine. Non-threats kind of bite me once in a while. It seems like I'm constantly fighting the urge to thread the needle a little bit too fine and shoot for the center of the down zero instead of the center of the available target area.
Right.
So that's been a bane since I started. I think, I can get away with that. Nope. No, you can't.
No, you can't. So you're an honorary member of the non-threat assassination squad.
You know, I hit way less than I used to, but I still, once in a while, I'll hit one. Now, again, carry optics has helped that tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more accurate.
Yep. All right, here's a question I haven't asked anybody before, but it's based on a stage that I shot over the past weekend.
All right, I get a new one.
Yeah, just want to get your take on how you would approach this. If you're starting a stage, you're shooting one of the 10, 11 round, division guns, carry optics or SSP, ESP, and the stage calls for you to engage 4 targets, 2 rounds each from the first position of cover, and then you have a long move to another position of cover to finish to shoot another array of targets. How do you approach that? Do you, because I see that done different ways, how would you approach it?
So if there's a decent amount of movement at all, I'm going to do a attack reload on the way. Shoot the first 8 and stuff that mag in my pocket and start running. Yeah.
All right. What part of your game at this point in your career do you feel like is your strength, and what part do you still feel like you need to improve on?
Strength is definitely accuracy. I many times finish matches, at or near the top of, the fewest points down. Now, that being said, that also leads to one of the negatives, and that is I tend to take too much time, particularly with carry optics, over confirming the dot. Instead of just shooting for an acceptable sight picture, I'll shoot for a perfect sight picture, and that obviously takes more time. Again, one of the weaknesses I get, as I said, trying to slice the pie too thin sometimes and clip the very edge of the non-threat instead of just, remembering, okay, you don't have to get that close.
Take what's available.
Way better than 5.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, as we kind of wrap this up, give us an idea what it is for you that makes IDPA so much fun. You've devoted enough effort to not just traveling and working matches, but to become a master in all these different divisions. Why do you do it instead of moving on to something else? What is it you love about IDPA that keeps you coming back?
The people. I really think so. the people that you meet in IDPA are normally, not as hardcore, competitive. They seem to be more relaxed. Now, there are exceptions. I met a couple of nationals last year, and that's okay. But yeah, they're normally they're out there to have fun. They're out there to improve their skills. You probably saw that survey that was done several years ago by the Shooting Sports Foundation. It has said that over 2/3 of IDPA members shoot not for competitive reasons. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty fascinating. But yeah, so yeah, the people and just the social stuff too.
Yep. It's like a big family reunion when you get to one of those matches.
It really is. It really is, especially if it's a big match. I've been fortunate a couple of times to shoot on the Super Squad, and those guys are just like everybody else. They're, I shot at Arizona State match last year. I was on a squad with Rob Latham and Bobby McGee and Mandy Bachman, and they're just like everyday people. They're just really helpful, friendly. Rob will keep you laughing the whole day. So he's a lot of fun. But yeah,
I agree entirely. Well, Bill, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for everything you're doing, and best of luck in the future. I look forward to an opportunity to shoot with you down the road.
I'd look forward to that too. I appreciate you having me on, Lloyd. I appreciate it.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.